Welcome to the New Thinking for a New World podcast, where we explore the most pressing issues that are challenging and changing our societies. We are looking for new thinking and new solutions wherever we can find them. Listen as host Alan Stoga, the Thalberg Foundation's chairman, challenges his guests for analysis, ideas and actions. Together, we can help make our world at least a bit better.
Hello, I'm Alan Stoga, chairman of the Thalberg Foundation. I'm delighted to welcome you to a special edition of our podcast, New Thinking for a New World. You are about to listen to a recent conversation among Palacio, former Spanish foreign minister, Jakob Hallgren, an experienced Swedish diplomat who now heads the Swedish Institute of Foreign Affairs, and me, as we discuss the future of Europe. Europe is under considerable stress from the Ukraine war, from financial market turmoil, from the energy crisis, from looming recessions, social unrest, political turmoil, you name it. And that's on top of the longstanding north-south, east-west tensions that have been a condition of Europe for some time now. The question is whether all of these forces will combine in ways that could produce less Europe or perhaps more Europe. Is there a way? Is there leadership at the national levels or at the European level to overcome these challenges and turn straw or something worse into gold? Listen as we explore the future of Europe and let us know what you think. To lead our thinking, we have two friends of Thalberg and experts with enormous experience in both diplomacy and politics on national as well as European scale. Ana Palacio and Jakob Hallgren's. Ana was Spain's foreign minister. She's been a member of the European Parliament, a member of the Spanish Parliament, and she's an international lawyer specializing in EU and international law. Jakob Hallgren is director of Sweden's Institute of International Affairs and a seasoned diplomat with extensive experience in Europe and beyond. Today, one of the questions on the table is, what are the implications of the war as it has evolved on Europe, on the major, and on the European countries in general? And we will get to that. Now to start, Jakob, let's frame today's conversation first from a Swedish perspective. How confident are you that all of the stresses I've described can be managed? And let me caveat that. I know you're not speaking on behalf of Sweden, and Ana is obviously not speaking on behalf of Spain, so you're in your own capacities. But to the question.
Well, first of all, thanks, Alan, for this opportunity. Great to be able to be with you under your able and great leadership on a great and to say the least pressing topic here today. Well, I think we need to be reminded, and I think that's certainly very much part of the Swedish narrative but it's certainly the war in Ukraine and Russia's aggression, or stepped up aggression, that has created this situation and all the stresses that you're talking about. But let's not forget about the completely and unprecedented unity that this has displayed across Europe in the spring and over the summer, and I believe now 8 sanction packages, and what this has created in terms of stepped up defense spending and various types of collaboration, which has made European Union member states forget some of the previous disaccords and disunities. I think that is important to remember as a backdrop. But it is also, of course, true that there are a lot of potential problems and a lot of huge challenges looming on the horizon. I mean, you mentioned a couple of them, but obviously the energy issues comes to mind as one of the more pressing ones, because once individuals need to pay electricity bills which go way beyond what they can afford, they'll start to complain, and they'll start to wonder what is our national government and what is Europe as a whole doing to us essentially. So I think, as far as I'm concerned, and as I think Sweden is concerned, there is a huge empathy and sympathy with the plight that the Ukrainian people is enduring right now, and there's I'd say, deep-seated and genuine anger about the way Moscow and Russia is behaving in Ukraine, and that, at least as far as I can tell, at least from the Swedish perspective, makes us sticks us together and makes us willing to endure quite a lot. But as I alluded to, there are obviously potential limits to that you can imagine. I think this is clearly an existential crisis, and a crisis at the magnitude that I don't think we have seen for a very long time. The biggest war in Europe since the Second World War. Our newly appointed defense minister said that this is the most serious security situation that we're facing since the Second World War in the Nordic region, in Sweden, etc. But I take some confidence in the fact that if you look at the way Europe has dealt with some earlier crises, and I'm thinking about the financial crisis in 2008, and I'm thinking about the pandemic. Well, it wasn't nice. It was kind of chaotic. It was certainly riddled with a lot of sometimes uncomfortable compromises. But Europe actually managed to get its act together and to wade through that and actually survive. Stronger in some ways. And we're not naive here about the risks for disintegration and the risk that the cohesion will not stay. But I think I'm at the end of the day, at least so far. Well, time will tell, and Sweden will assume the role as the presidency of the European Union in January. But I'm still cautiously on the optimistic side that Europe will be able to deal with these challenges and these crises. We'll stop there as a first intervention. Thanks.
Thank you. It's certainly the case that both of your countries, both Sweden and Spain, are known for their pro-European stances. You're all in when it comes to Europe in terms of national commitments. And it is also the case that during the crises of the last decade or so, and I'm thinking back to Greece, I'm thinking back to the tensions, will the euro survive, et cetera, Europe has in fact both managed those crises well and emerged stronger, although you used the word existential. The nature of this crisis may be somewhat more profound. Anna, how are you looking at it from this sort of 60,000-foot perspective?
Well, thank you, Alan, and it's a great pleasure. And by the way, I will start by something which is interesting, is that after Sweden, the presidency of the European Union will be held by Spain in the second semester of 2023. So there will be a succession of the Czech Republic, Sweden, and Spain. I will pick up two of expressions that Jakob has used and support them. I think that Europeans have surprised even ourselves by the unity that we are having, at least until today, behind Ukraine. That's my first. My second pick up from his interesting intervention is that this is a crisis of a different magnitude than whatever we have had until today. And I will go to two other terms that you have used. The first is leadership, and the second is this idea of more Europe or not more Europe. And my reasoning will go in an analysis of maybe a different Europe. Why? Well, first thing is that if we concentrate on what has been the engine of the European construction, the Germany and France, the tandem, Germany and France, we see that this engine is sputtering now. There are clear clear tensions, and clear tensions that in what concerns the future of the European Union, they lead two different strands. In the Charles University speech, Chancellor Scholz highlighted the idea that we had to approach enlargement. While Macron has brought this idea of a community, a political community that, by the way, it's an old idea that has been circulating, that after the fall of the Berlin Wall, Mitterrand put on the table in order not to enlarge NATO and not to enlarge the European Union, but to have a different construction, more following the 46 Zurich speech by Churchill. This idea of a Europe, but a different Europe that, until now has been the Council of Europe. So here we have two perspectives. One is enlarge, the other one is create a different kind of organization. And in the middle, you have the European Commission, the speech of the State of the Union by the President of the European Commission, where von der Leyen said, we need to reform the treaties. We need to convene a convention and reform the treaties. With this, we have to go one step further. We know that there are clear tensions between Germany and France, that they oppose. There are differences in energy today, and I will mention the very salient points today that made that the bilateral meeting of the two governments was postponed, that at the last moment they convened this meeting between the two Macron and Scholz. But we have energy. Jakob has highlighted it is extremely important. We have the positioning of Europe vis-a-vis China, which is also extremely important. And third, we have this idea of how to build European defense. And these are areas where France and Germany today do not have, but are in opposite or are going in opposite directions. So first is the second thing, and I think it's extremely interesting that Toil is a Swedish foundation. I'm coming from Riga, from the Security of Defense of Riga, the yearly meeting of Riga. What I see is a pole of initiative led by the Nordics with the Baltics, and the core of it being Baltics and Nordics, with a speech that in summary would be: the West is back, the East is in trouble, the South is divided, and we are resilient, we are for democracy, we are for human rights, and here we stand. And remember the Pabriks, the foreign affairs minister, asking in Berlin to the Germans, saying, well, I'm not sure that we can trust the Germans. We Latvians, we are ready to die for Europe. Are you? So honestly, more Europe at this moment, it's complicated to see how all this will in the end come together. Because I think it will come together. Why? Because, and this is my first explicit mention of Ukraine. Ukraine has put us against the wall. We cannot just go on dragging feet and saying, as Benita Ferrero-Waldner in 2005 said precisely in Kiev when asked about the enlargement. of the European Union saying, well, the door is not open, but the door is not closed. What is a door that is not open, but is not closed? Well, there is no door. So I think that we have been procrastinating. We have been, muddling through, trying to just keep things on the back burner. With Ukraine, I think that we will have to take positions. And this is why I said at the beginning that I see a different Europe. I don't see an enlargement of 35 chapters, and after you have negotiated the 35 chapters, from one day to the next, the flag of the said country just joins the other flag. I think that we are going to do, we will have to go a more pragmatic way. Just for reference, we have connected Ukraine before to the European grid in March. Before we connected the Baltic countries to the European grid, which means that we are confronted with the situation, and we are taking practical steps, and we will have to take more of these practical steps just in different areas. Of course, energy is one, security is another one. One last comment, though. Here we are speaking a lot in the transatlantic community about reconstruction of Ukraine. And this will be an important chapter of all this. I'm not saying, of course, we have the Balkans that are there. By the way, we started negotiating with Albania after we declare Ukraine a candidate. So Ukraine is shaking the boat. And when you shake the boat, and there I join Jakob, I'm an optimist. I'm a realist, but I'm an optimist. I think things will happen, pragmatic things, and what we need is to, in my opinion today, to get back to a common approach, France and Germany, because if not, it will be extremely different. And France and Germany, not exactly aligned. They have never been exactly aligned, but in an understanding that they are lacking today and that will be very bad. One last comment. It's obvious that the center of gravity of the European Union has gone north and east, and the center of activity, of drive, of strength is absolutely in the northeast. As I said, is this pole where of the Baltics with the Nordics, with a bit, if you allow me, I know that you are Swede, but I'm Spanish, but sometimes from this position of high moral ground that you take, that's where we are. Of course, with Poland there, that is not exactly in the same pole, but it's in the same drive, and other Eastern and Central and Eastern European countries, members of the fifth enlargement. We in the South, in Spain particularly, we are very eccentric, absolutely eccentric. And this is something that should be a concern for all of us, because yes, Russia is where Russia is, and we in Spain, we don't have this sensitivity vis-a-vis Russia, because for us, Russia is Dr. Zhivago and Tchaikovsky and a little more. For our countrymen, it's that. We haven't had a history with Russia, but you don't know the Mediterranean. And the Mediterranean is not just about immigration or refugees. The Mediterranean is about Wagner, it's about the Sahel, it's about security. So we need to keep this idea of NATO 360, and we need to keep, of course, a focus today on Russia, of course, a focus today on the East, but we cannot forget the Mediterranean.
If you feel that the world lacks global leaders, please help support the Talberg Foundation programs. Individual donations are being accepted at talbergfoundation.org/donate. That's TALLBERG foundation.org/donate.
So, Anna, that's an incredibly robust set of issues. We could be here for the rest of the week parsing them. But I want to focus on two. One you mentioned, one you implicitly mentioned. And let me start with the latter. It has been one of the flags of Europe for years that the mantra of soft power, that Europe was going to lead at a global level to the development of its soft power, defined differently by different people. But it's been clear watching what has happened to military commitments in many countries that it was at the cost of hard power. That, in fact, for all practical purposes, Germany disarmed, France really close to disarming other than their nuclear capacity. And it's been spotlighted, obviously, by the war in Ukraine. And we've had new commitments from the Germans and others to that. We now have to bulk up. We now actually need some kind of serious rearmament. Put aside for a second whether that is within NATO or next to NATO. Those are critical issues which we won't have time to get to. But is it, do you think, fair? And it's to either of you to respond. Is it fair to say that the overemphasis on soft power has been revealed as not such a great idea by the Putin aggression in the East? Jakob?
I mean, there's many people who say that Europe relied on China for production and the United States for security, etc. And I mean, that's maybe a little bit exaggerated, but there's certainly an element of truth in that there was, either an ignorance or maybe naivete of the risks that have been displayed so clearly by Russia's behavior, and also by China's behavior, by the way. So there might be some truth in that, and I think this is resulting in a new realization that I mean, I can only talk about Sweden as an example, as a very strong free trade proponent, which we will always remain to be at heart. But we also realize, and I think the pandemic already showed that production value chains and so on needs to be reliable, and they weren't, and this is related to issues about key technologies that we are critically reliant about, and that of course leads me to the issue of defense that you mentioned. I mean, I've already mentioned how commitments for increased defense spending are everywhere in Europe, and there is a renewed commitment to look into how, well, at least joint procurement in defense can happen in Europe. And I think there is also a whole new, you have to correct me, Alan, but acceptance from the United States that Europe actually invests in joint platforms, etc., in order to strengthen its defense. I think the ultimate illustration of this new realization of new geopolitical realities, where Europe needs to, take on a firmer stance, is Finland's and Sweden's application to join NATO. Unfortunately, Russia is not allowing countries to choose their own courses of security, identity and systems any longer, and we draw the conclusions from that. So I mean, I think there is a realization that tendency to focus more on soft power than hard power has been rebalanced to more of an investment in hard power. But I want to say that finally maybe that when it comes to hard power, the transatlantic link is, and everybody realizes that, indispensable. This conflict has shown how that link has been reactivated and revitalized in ways we didn't think were possible a couple of years ago, when I think it was President Macron said that NATO was brain dead, etc. That's certainly not the case any longer. So Europe, yes, but in very strong collaboration across the Atlantic as well. I think I'll stop there.
Well, if I can just put on the table my 2 cents. First on soft power and then on defense. On soft power, we have gone the soft power route to the dismay of many of us. But this was, when you speak with Germans today feel on the defensive and they think that it's Germany bashing, because in the end, the army that really was not an army in an operative sense is Germany, and the culture that was not a defense culture was Germany, and the foreign affairs policy that was not a foreign affairs but just a trade policy was Germany, and all this has been brewing there. Together with the idea that the French were nuclear power, had their own seat at the Security Council, so there was not a real interest in this engine to go forward in anything that was not soft power. But at the same time, honestly, I think that we have to remember that, yes, under the security umbrella provided by the United States, but the reunification of Germany was done soft power way, and the enlargement was done soft power way. And we have been discussing with our German friends for years that they could not, that this Ostpolitik of Wandel durch Handel was not a sensible one. But they would respond to you, okay, well, this is what has happened. So right now we are confronted with a different situation, but we cannot forget what was the situation when Europe was preaching soft power under the very comfortable umbrella of the United States. Now on defense, what we have is that Germany in this Zeitenwende that we need to see how it will be materialized. But the Chancellor Scholz has announced 100 billion for the army. Yet the first thing that Germany does is to organize a missile shield, excluding France. And let's be clear. I understand that France cannot see how Germany is excluding the biggest, the best armed, the best performing military in Europe, and then Germany buys American instead of buying European, and so on and so on. So again, I think that all this is a matter of being at a turning point and needing to sit down and see that it's not about soft power any longer, that it's politics stupid, and that because it's politics, we need defense and we need a foreign policy and we need Germany to think European, because this is the other issue that is happening now. Germany, until now, before reunification, Germany looked for its interest within the European interest. We have gone for many years, we have lived in a German Europe where really Germany decided about refugees and we accepted. Germany decided about Nord Stream 1 and 2 contrary to the founding principles of the European Energy Union, Germany, so whatever Germany wanted, Germany got in the European Union, which was a different aspect. But now what we are seeing is that Germany is going solo. Germany, Macron invited Merkel to the meeting that he organized with Xi Jinping, but now Scholz, instead of waiting as Macron wanted, is going there by himself. And I think that Germany right now is sending a message in the limit of gas prices, in anything that we have done, and we have done the next generation funding, and now we need to concentrate on us. And this concentrating on us, Germany, means 200 billion to help our companies, whatever the consequences for internal market is. And this means I go and I see Xi Jinping and I sell Hamburg and I do whatever. And this is extremely, extremely dangerous.
It's also extremely important because going back to the idea of a different Europe, as you've just said, Germany, to a considerable extent, Germany and France together to some extent, have been, if not the driving force, that's probably the wrong way to put it, but have been the leaders of the engine of this. It does raise an existential question for where Europe goes, who's going to make the decisions. Is it who's in that engine? I defend Germany for a second in the sense that they're probably a bit shell-shocked right now. Their entire global strategy is in tatters. The dependence on Russian energy, you pointed out, turned out to be not such a hot idea. They outsourced, as you've said, their security to the United States, and now they have to do something about that. They are hyper-dependent industrially on China more than any of the other European countries. And as you just described, Scholz is headed there by himself, and it looks like trying to enhance that relationship, the German relationship, not the European relationship. So turn that into a question for you, Jakob. If Germany's not leading Europe, I guess there's two aspects to it. How do you get them back on side? And is perhaps the first one. And the second one is what happens if, as Anna has suggested, they are now on a path to focus on themselves at the expense of Europe?
Sorry, Alan. I didn't say that. What I meant is exactly what you have said. Germany right now is in disarray. Germany right now is confused. Germany right now is doing Brownian movements. What we have to expect and hope for is a Germany coming back to its senses with its power, but to its senses of understanding that it cannot go solo. So I don't think that this is for the future. Just this note, because I'm a believer, and again, Germany has been the tractor of many of these initiatives that have benefited, among other, all Europe, including Germany. But right now, it's the moment for the rest of the European Union to show solidarity and to show understanding. And we have, because the mess of the energy is of German manufacturing. It's not Spain, it's not Sweden, it's Germany, basically. And we are trying to get there. What we need is that Germany, just as I said, goes back to a normal mode, because right now they are in an abnormal, extraordinary mode.
No, I agree with the examples which were mentioned here. Going alone to China and discussion about where to buy weapons, etc. But so I do agree that Germany is probably in a state of confusion, and I tend to agree with you, Alan, that we must maybe understand that the magnitude and the degree to which German attitudes shifted extremely quickly this spring is unprecedented from German points of view. I remember a time not so long ago where everybody asked for Germany to form a foreign policy and to be more assertive and to actually take a stance in Europe and to step up in every possible way. And they are now doing that. And in some ways, they are receiving a lot of critique for initiatives they're taking in one way or another. But I mean, I believe they're sufficiently embedded in and loyal to the European ideas that they will listen to that and adapt. I mean, some good decisions were taken, or initiatives or indications were coming out of the European Council last week, I believe, on how to deal with Ukraine as we go forward, with energy, gas prices, etc., and also with China. So I think they will listen, and that they will adapt and also lead, because talking about leadership, it's Europe which needs to lead, but Germany needs to lead together with France, of course. I fully agree with that. It's when the French-German engine, when that works, that Europe moves forward. Sometimes we think that is going too quickly and maybe in a federalist direction too much for a Nordic taste. And we're certainly also always quite careful when increased lending is borrowing is coming up, but I think it's moving it will be moving in the right direction. As I said before, the compromises and the way they reach the compromises is not always very beautiful, but given the stakes, the existential nature of the stakes here, I think they'll come to agree in an acceptable way. And Sweden will once again, just like Spain, be in the fortunate or not so fortunate, let's see how it will be, situation to lead this in the next 6 months.
Let's talk economics and politics just for a moment. We're clearly headed into what could be a severe recession in Europe, at least forecasters insist. There are inflationary pressures more or less everywhere. The social safety net is under some pressure. It's the subsidies. In fact, the subsidies that Germany has announced for its people and companies have really focused the region's attention on why aren't the Germans playing at a European level? Why are we suffering more? But put all of that together with political winds blowing in countries like Sweden, like Italy, towards giving more power to the right, whether it's far right or center right, we could debate some other time. But you clearly have populism becoming more popular. And I would argue it's partly because of the crummy economic conditions, and we're about to have them become much worse. So how much, and in Spain, of course, you have a complicated political situation as well, where you do worry about what's going on not in the center, but in the right and the left. So to what extent are you concerned that this economic tsunami, which seems to be coming at us, seems to be coming at Europe, is going to push politics into directions that are less collaborative, that are less trying to solve regional problems or even global problems, and more focused on the home, more focused on the local politics than on these bigger questions?
Well, I mean, the risk is certainly there, and the scenarios could easily be portrayed in the direction you just did. But I would still argue that, at least speaking about Sweden, it might be described as populist, but it's also fiercely pro-European and colored by an insight that for some of the bigger issues, it's really only joined to bigger European solutions which can address some of these challenges with notable exceptions. And there is also talking about the local politics here, there was quite a lot of anger about fuel prices and things like that, which carried these parties to the majority. So I think there is also a wish to really address those issues both at the national and the European level. But yeah, of course, the risks are there that we will disintegrate into less collaborative behaviors. But I think that what is happening in Ukraine and the Russian behavior there is quite sobering. And if you consider that that's what's at stake, essentially all of our core values, everything we believe in, whether it is the human rights and democracy and all the values that is underpinning this collaboration. You can never rule out anything, but at least as I read it, there is a strong wish to make it work. It might be a rocky ride. I fully agree with that, but I fully see that. But I still think that they will come round and take the necessary responsibility.
One of the consequences, and I just let me connect out here. One of the consequences of the war, have been 5 million Ukrainian refugees flocking into Europe, and frankly, being extremely well treated, allowed to work, supported, not just in the bordering country. Poland stepped up immediately, but throughout much of Europe. So we do have this Ukraine experience, very positive, but it has also raised a lot of criticism. Why are you letting Ukrainians in, but not Syrians and not Tunisians and not Africans, etc.? So how do you square that circle?
Honestly, for me, it's because this is us. I mean, this is Europe. This is democracy. This is our democracy. This is the survival of the European Union as such. Ukraine has brought us back the awareness of our values. It's a different story. This is not a matter of immigration. This is a matter of just participating in a fight that they are dying for, but it is our fight, and this is what citizens in Europe perceive. And this is what it is. In a way, Ukraine has brought us back epic. La chanson de Roland, El cantar del mio Cid, Tristan and Isolde, all this is today Ukraine. It's our, as I say, it's our fight. They are dying for us. This sentiment, and this is the feeling that citizens have. This is a different feeling. The feeling for a refugee is a feeling for compassion, but it's not a feeling of, your fight is my fight. No, these are difficult circumstances. We need to address them, but we cannot equate. The circumstances are different. I think that if something has been very clear is that European citizens have instinctively understood that the aim for Putin is not Ukraine. It starts in Ukraine, but it's just undermining our system of democracy and just disembodying the European Union. So this is why normal people, because this is not governments, this is not policies, this is normal people. This is normal people understanding. As I said before, I don't know how to express it better. They are fighting, they are dying for our principles, for our values, and for our future.
I fully agree with that, and I mean, hence the sanctions against Russia and all of the support to Ukraine, but also the generosity to receive those Ukrainians when they choose to leave their country for a while or for longer, and there's such a direct link to the feeling that they are essentially defending our way of life. And let me also add, I mean, we're not forgetting the Mediterranean and needs in Southern Europe or south of the European Union for that matter. And I do agree that some of the kind of moral high ground or policies or initiatives are driven from Eastern Europe, maybe now, to some extent also Northern Europe. But that is because there was a feeling that they were right the whole time. And we're talking about how representatives from the Baltic countries, from Poland and other Eastern European countries have talked about the risks that we're now seeing being materialized for so long. And when that is happening, there's kind of an unprecedented and enormous generosity that flows up, directly linked to that and linked to the fear and the anger of Russian behavior, I would say. So it's a whole different magnitude.
One last word, if you allow me. One last word. We need the United States. I mean, we really need, we Europeans, I think that for the moment, and I'm sure that Jakob will agree with me, we need you guys. I mean, when I said what was said in Riga, that I agree, is the West is bad. And the West means America with allies, but America.
I fully agree with that. I already said it several times. It's key. And the way the transatlantic relation has been revitalized over this last half year is or almost a year now is quite incredible, I must say.
It's been wonderful to have an hour conversation about Europe, and the word Brexit has not been mentioned. That's a real accomplishment, which a year or two ago we could not have done. So there's some upside to this horrible war. We've talked about the shift in political gravity in Europe, east and north. And it is precisely the question of the role of Poland perhaps joining France and Germany and thinking about what is the future of Europe in terms of the engines.
I could start very briefly, but I think we're still seeing the adaptation of member state relations within the Union after the UK leaving. I mean, Sweden, for one, was, at a loss for a while. I mean, where's our free trade friend, and how should we now relate to an even stronger Germany when one of the other big ones was gone? I recently saw an interesting article or reference in the French media alluding to what you just said, how in France, there are thoughts now about how to increase and intensify bonds with Poland. And as I mentioned before, Poland and some of the other countries in that region were morally right. I mean, there are some necessary shifts taking place here in the way the countries, remaining countries within the Union are relating to each other due to the fact that the UK left and due to the new realities. We haven't seen the end of that yet. And as Anna was alluding to before, maybe there will be a need to kind of balancing a shell-shocked or whatever confused Germany as it finds its new place in this wider EU collaboration. So that would be my thoughts.
Just if you allow me one sentence, what is important in this Brexit issue is that we fear that Brexit will be contagious. And the truth of the matter is that even parties, and I'm thinking of the French Front National, so the Le Pen party, before Brexit wanted to exit the European Union, and now nobody wants to exit it. There are different approaches to the European Union. This is important. Now, second, Poland will undoubtedly play an important role. But again, for me, the discovery is this pole of Nordics, by the way, where Sweden is playing a plaque tournante, a kind of just a cement of this, but where in many ways Finland has been brought with the importance of the Arctic that we haven't mentioned, but that is there. It's one of the big issues that we should address. For me, this is extremely important.
So we have endless issues that we've opened. I'm not sure we've closed any. I do like the idea, which really has been a common in what you've said, both of you have said, that there's a different Europe evolving for all sorts of reasons, not the least Brexit, but for all sorts of reasons. It's a work in progress. It isn't, by framing it more or less Europe, we're not going to get very far. Different Europe and how that different Europe might work, the relationship to China, the relationship to the United States.
It's going to be a tough struggle, but I think the sense that there are existential issues at play, whether it is the European values, democracy, way of life, ultimately peace, because European Union is actually a peace project, that those will prevail.
I think that we have to make everything possible to stick together. This is our future. The weak link is there, and we need to overcome that and do whatever it takes to keep these citizens all over Europe engaged in this common project, where that now has been shaken by an existential, which is what is an existential war, and they have to keep the drive, and it's not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy for sure. If the economy is as bad as some think it will be, if countries continue to focus on their own internal needs, not the collective needs, and indeed if the war goes badly. So we are facing a whole series of headwinds. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Jakob. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Alan. Always. Thank you, and thanks to the foundation.
Thank you for joining us. Please rate our show on Apple Podcast and subscribe. Meanwhile, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Or you can subscribe to our newsletter at tallbergfoundation.org to learn more about our work. That's TALLBERG foundation.org. Thank you, and we'll be back again next week for another episode of Tallberg's New Thinking for a New World. This podcast was brought to you through the generous support of SNF, the Stavros Niarchos Foundation.